Hi there. Ignore the noise in the back. That's just my stove vent going off because I'm making garlic bread right now. And I wanted to talk about 2001 Space Odyssey by Stanley Kubrick and the music and some of the techniques that I noticed that both Stanley Kubrick and these artists use. How they kind of complement one another. So, before there's any visuals or dialogue in the film, there's a song in the background that plays by Georgi Ligeti called Atmospheres. Stanley Kubrick uses this track to help us associate Ligeti with anything that's unknown to us or something mysterious, to create like an uneasy tension because the song itself sounds very eerie. Like, we don't necessarily know for sure what that is in the background. Like, we just hear this screeching and it's like, what is that? You know, it makes us wonder like a little bit more about what's going on.
Photo is some guys on the moon. For funsies.
Georgi Ligeti was an avant-garde musician of the classical era. At this time, being avant-garde meant experimenting with new techniques to music and creating new sounds and things of that sort. Like just being something that's like different, new, creative in that sense. And what Ligeti does in that sense is he creates music without any specific chorus, any key tones, any key harmony or melody. He kind of just picks like a middle ground of both like another tone and another tone, so it sounds like at a really weird pitch. This technique that he uses is called atonal. When you create music that sounds a little bit unnerving, and we don't really get it at first, but we later learn to love and come to know this as something that is Georgi Ligeti's work, and we recognize it today as something that was atonal. After this song and the intro plays, the actual movie begins to start, where we get to see all the producers and the names of people who are credited for this film, and that one infamous song begins to play. You know the one.
Photo is of the monolith appearing before the sun, creating a black silhouette.
This visual, or this piece, sorry, paired up with the visual of a black silhouette coming over like a planet or a sun, is, you know, something that we see quite a few times in the film, more toward the beginning, because we get to learn that this is something that Stanley Kubrick uses as discovery. And this piece is called Sprach Zarathustra by Richard Strauss, and both Strauss and Ligeti were influential musicians of their time, and they're responsible for creating some of these tracks that we listen to and study today. Those two songs are the first that play in the film. Then we're introduced to Moonwatcher, and we get to see that, you know, his father dying, which in the book he seems to be emotional, and we kind of get the sense that the monolith is looking over him in the book, but in the movie it's kind of just like it just happens. And once they actually come across the monolith, there's a song that there's a song that plays called Lux Aeterna by none other than Georgi Ligeti. The song's instrumental for this particular piece is very different, because in the first piece we could hear that there was some sort of like actual instruments in there as well as some voice, although we might not recognize that at first. There are some sort of like brass or trumpets in there that we hear that creates like this tension. But in this track, the song's instrumental is very different from the first one we heard from Georgi Ligeti. This one uses purely vocals, and this is something called a cappella, and that's very reminiscent of early ages of music. Something that we could see this in is Roman Catholic Mass and Gospel, where the songs that they would sing only had vocals, and they use this to create like a harmony, an elongated harmony over a song. And I think that represents the dawn of man very well as well. However, Lux Eterna, translated from Latin to English, means eternal light. And in this sense, eternal light could symbolize something that shows guidance or some sort of eternal presence. In 2001: A Space Odyssey, Stanley Kubrick has an interesting take on extraterrestrial life form in this sense. And the film did come out before the book, so we didn't get that much of an explanation, but I think this really ties in well with, you know, that specific piece that he picks for the beginning, because that's like the dawn of man. We could say that this is tied to ancient and prehistoric time in the sense of like technology and evolution and the science-based perspective for the film. It's after this meeting with the monolith that Moonwatcher realizes that he can actually use tools. You know, he tears up this hog, he feeds his tribe, and they kind of get like that protein intake, which is good for the development of the brain. So this shows that we're watching the evolution and development of early human hominids. But when he's making that discovery, the song plays, and then that's the last we hear of those songs for a while, because there's a couple of other tracks that play, but then, you know, it comes back.
Foe is of Moonwatcher's tribe discovering the monolith.
I think another scene that I can kind of relate to this next song, The Blue Danube by, I think it's a Joanne Strauss. Reminds me of Rango. It's an animated children's film, which is like crazy, I know, but there's this scene where this lizard is kind of attached to a bat, and he's like pretending he's flying, but the whole time he's actually like kind of hostage in a sense, because his fellow townspeople that he went with, because he's pretending to be a sheriff, are down there in the bottom of this canyon fighting for his life, and he's just kind of up there flying, like having this extravagant, elegant, like bouncy, cheery type of vibe and song. And that's kind of what the Blue Danube is kind of like.
Foe is of Dr. Haywood Floyd enjoying his dinner on a spaceship.
The Blue Danube by Joanne Strauss is composed of flutes and some horns, trumpets, etc. The combination of these two instruments is called woodwinds, and it's used to make like these louder, outdoorsy noises, while also being quite like extravagant at the same time. Like, it's meant to create, I just burped, sorry. It's meant to create this extravagant sense. Maybe not specifically that, but definitely a lot of pieces that are woodwinds sound like great and outdoorsy and social and things of that sort. And we kind of get this with the montage of the space shuttle. We see that it's kind of like a very luxurious bougie airport, and that there's very important people up there, and it's showing the effects of like zero gravity and the rules of space. And then also there's a little bit of secrecy because this track plays for a while. The song cuts, and then it continues playing on again after they discover that the mission is really under tight wraps, because Dr. Haywood Floyd has this discussion with his men, and they're kind of being like, oh, like this is what we have planned. Although it's a huge lie, because the music comes back a little bit later once the ship is getting closer to Jupiter, and the music starts getting louder and more intense. And then this is where another song comes in. When they actually land on the moon, I might have said Jupiter in that last clip, I meant the moon. When they actually land on the moon and they actually uncover the monolith, you know, this group goes up to them, and then as these men are walking up to the monolith, the song that plays is again by Ligeti, called Requiem, Ligeti Requiem. Pretty sure. I'll probably put the full name in text, like
Game by Aram Kachacharian.
text to speech on the screen, or maybe something like that, but we'll just say Requiem for now. This track has, you know, definitely those atonal features, but there's some instrumental in it. Although it's a lot different from the first one we heard, because these vocals get more loud and more intense, and it's like a little bit scary, which is the whole point. And because he does really create like this He literally does have a song called Atmosphere as well, but he does create these atmosphere type songs and music for his thing. So that's pretty cool. And that's just something he did in there as well, coming upon the second interaction with the monolith so far for mankind. They think it's their first, but actually it's the second. And we know that as well from seeing the beginning of the film. And I thought maybe there were some similarities as well with the same track, but also there being some instrumental as well, because in the first track it was Lux Eterna, and it was just these vocals talking about the dawn of man and that tribe that discovers it. This one, it's a little bit more, advanced. You definitely hear some orchestra in there, and it's a group of men who are going up to the monolith after it being kept a secret. So I would say it was kept in secrecy, but maybe that there are some similarities between these group of men and a tribe coming together and finding the monolith and getting that information for themselves.
Photo is of the men looking down at the monolith on the moon.
As we know at this point in the film, and as well as in the book, this interaction with the monolith sends a signal that looks like it's being sent to Jupiter, but actually it's coming from the moon. Actually, it is coming from Jupiter, sent to the moon to send them to them. In the book, it says something like that. But in the film, we kind of just know that there was a signal coming from Jupiter. And that was like the true mission, which we're about to see Poole and, I'm forgetting his name, Bowman, when we see them on the ship with all the scientists who are in cryopods. That scene stops, and then in the next moment where we hear some instrumental again is when Bowman and Poole are on the ship performing their regular activities and duties. The song that plays is called, I'm gonna butcher it, Gayam by Aram Kachurian. I'm just gonna say that. I might have to look at the names properly. But the instrumentals are just strings played in a more chiller tempo, like these other songs picked up in speed toward like the end. But this song is a lot more like walking pace, and we do see this little bit where Bowman's doing his exercise on the ship, where he's walking through it, rotating around it, and Gaian is from a 4-act ballet, which has this story of a heroine who's married to a guy who's hopelessly drunk and arsonist. Overall a bad guy. She conspires with the Soviet Union guard to kill her husband, but she gets stabbed but survives, and in the end she remarries. But some believe that she is meant to represent Gaia, which is like the earth goddess according to ancient Greek word for Gaia, and earth goddess. So maybe there's some connections there that Kubrick was trying to make, but I'm a little confused as a viewer. So
Photo is of Bowman running through a looped corridor.
the song continues to play into the phone call, the birthday phone call that Hal receives, connects to Poole's parents because it's Poole's birthday, and the song plays there. And I think it's a little bit significant because Hal wishes him a happy birthday, which like he was programmed to be polite and such thing and like trained in that sense. But at the same time, I think maybe there was a deeper meaning there because they don't know it, and Hal doesn't know it either. He's a dysfunctional robot, so he's trying to learn as much as he can about the mission of the ship while trying to keep things in order, and he needs to know what's going on, but at the same time he knows that they're not supposed to know, but he's the only one who knows, so he's not like, he's like keeping secrets, but it's like contradictory to his actual mission of the mission. So if that makes sense. There's no other tracks that play until the intermission, but it's at this point that we learn that Hal is dysfunctional. As the viewer, we learn, and then the men don't really learn. They kind of get the clue that there's definitely an error with him when he makes those things to the earth connectors, and then they check it and it's fine, and he's like, beats me, you know. He's like, he can't accept the fact that he's wrong, but he kind of has the moral compass of a 4-year-old, maybe a 3-year-old, something like that, where they just, you know, everything is right to them and they can't be wrong. And then if they do something wrong, they don't know what they did wrong, or it's for their own self. Because, you know, a 2-year-old could be like, I wanted to hit her just because, you know, type thing. You know, I think Hal has that similarity as well. In the intermission, the song comes back to Atmospheres, but it's in a more intense part, like the later part of the song, where things get a little bit more screechy and a little bit more piercing, and, you know, things like that. This is meant to create some sort of building up, because we know that the plot is going to take off from here. This is where Hal goes on his crazy murderous spree, and then he's like, you know, saying like, I did nothing wrong. He's like, I'm innocent. Like, hey, chill, I did nothing wrong. But actually, he murdered the whole crew except for Bowman. So, you know, but that creates, you know, that song Atmospheres plays again. It's on a black screen, and then this is where we start to see where he starts doing all that stuff, and this is where Bowman comes in the film, and he goes up into the room where Hal's being powered, and he's, you know, Hal's kind of saying like, what are you doing, Dave? Like don't go in there, like think about what you're doing, like you're jeopardizing the whole mission. Bowman whole time not knowing about the mission, but like Hal knows, but he can't tell the secret, and then it's kind of just like awkward, and he sings the song. I'm gonna play
Photo is of Bowman in red room to disconnect Hal.
Daisy, give me your answer, do. I'm half crazy, all for the love of you. It won't be a stylish marriage. I can't afford a carriage, but you look
After all the murdering and the crazy stuff that Hal does out of confusion, he sings a song called Daisy Bell, which was only ever sung by the first ever singing computer. That's crazy. First only ever sung. I mean, the computer, whoever sang the song first, was a robot called IBM 7094, the first computer to ever sing in 1961. The song goes like, Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer due. I'm half crazy, all for the love of you. It won't be a stylish marriage. I can't afford a carriage, but you'll look so sweet upon the seat of a carriage built for two. That might just be like a little shout out to the first robot to ever sing ever, because 2001 Space Odyssey came out in 1968. But I think maybe this was Hal acknowledging the possibility, just like in a percentage wise, that he could be wrong, and that there is like that chance of him being dysfunctional. And in his last moments of being disconnected, which is like death in his sense, he starts to think about the song that he learned from a robot, possibly. And he sings it in the book too, but I think there's no other explanation. Same thing in the film. But it could be that this carriage built for two was the spaceship that took both him, Bowman, and Hal to the Stargate, which is what we see, and then it gets crazy from there. The last song, well, not the last song, but like the last song to play for a while is Requiem again, except it's more crazy, as you know, Hal goes through the Stargate. It's a bunch of lights and crazy colors. I say crazy colors, but really they're just neon lights going down a black hallway. It kind of seems like, but he's actually traveling through the Stargate, and you can kind of like, it looks like he's screaming because his face is pressed up against his space helmet, and his face is like pulled back, and it looks crazy. But I think this was just one of those moments where the special effects and the track really came together for Stanley Kubrick, to show that this was something unknown. He shows these, you know, I don't know the word for it. I don't know the word for it, but like these beautiful landscapes and this water, this body of water. You can see the ripples of the tides, except he puts it in an ultraviolet, so there's like a black shading with like these bright colors on top. I think the one he picks for the water is green, and then the rest of the rocks and things like that are blue and orange or pink, and some things like the sky. And Bowman sees all of this. I'm not 100% sure how it's described in the book, but what we do know is that when he's greeted again by the monolith, this is after he spends some time in a fake luxury hotel room created by the monoliths and the aliens of Jupiter, I guess in that sense, and is rapidly living through his life. He greets the monolith. He doesn't greet it, but like, you know, it greets him on his deathbed, and then he's recreated as a super being who gets sent back to Earth. He's like a giant floating fetus baby in the sky. And then this is where Zarathustra plays again in the end for that great major discovery. The ending of both the film and the book are left up to interpretation. We just know that he has like these, Bowman has been reincarnated into the super being who has like literally the powers of God apparently, that was given to him by the monolith. So I think that there's some connections and relevance in both technology and artificial life, or this like ethereal sense, because there's no way that, like, hang on, from a scientific standpoint, there's no way to create super beings, and the only way to relate super beings as something supernatural is to take part of religion too. So there's a little bit of a religious tie, I think, in the film and both the book when it comes to the monolith and them being able to grant him this power, or this these beings who potentially could have intervened in that sense with humans' evolution and development. But it really was for the good. I mean, we can't say that Bowman didn't just like blow up the planet. You know, there's suggestion that he might have been taking out like the things in the sky around Earth, so maybe that pollution sense, or that he's already working toward greater good, or he's just destroying stuff because he's a child. But at the same time, it's a little curious because, you know, who else was given that power of intelligence? Hal. However, Hal is a robot and he has a no moral compass. Same thing as a child. So there's no way to say that, you know, Bowman could potentially destroy everybody on Earth, or he could be just a super chill, super being baby. But those were a few things that I wanted to talk about in the sense of the relation to the music in the film. I think it really ties in the creepy atmosphere of space because we don't really know what's out there, and while also making it like something that we know and are familiar to, like these classical soundtracks and this orchestra, and it's all very grand. And that's all I think for tonight.